If part 1 was the setup, my neighbor's son sat next to me, and part 2 was the suspenseful pause, the dash, then part 3 is the explosion, the promise of something dramatic, shocking or emotionally charged that the audience can't walk away from. This final piece of the title is the storyteller's baited hook, the irresistible pull that forces a viewer, listener, or reader to stay until the very end. In a romantic, mature drama context, it's the signal that boundaries will be crossed, secrets will be exposed, and emotions will run dangerously high. 1. Why this phrase works like magic, "You won't believe what happened," is a universal curiosity trigger. It taps into the oldest human instinct, needing to know the unknown. It implies that what's coming is so far outside the norm, so unexpected, that it defies ordinary expectations. Psychologically, it does 3 things instantly. Promises something big, bigger than what the first part suggests. Challenges the audience. "Oh really? I won't believe it. Try me." Creates an information gap. Our brains hate not knowing things, so we feel compelled to find out. 2. The emotional tone behind the words. While the phrase might sound like a casual exaggeration, in the love and lies context it carries an emotional punch. This isn't about a mild surprise. This is about the kind of moment that makes your heart race, your hands tremble, or your stomach drop. It could be a forbidden spark, an unexpected glance or touch that feels far too intimate, a dangerous confession. He says something that changes everything you thought you knew, a shocking betrayal. Something happens that crosses a line you never thought would be crossed, a deep, raw truth, an emotional revelation that shakes you to your core. 3. The power of the unknown in romance and drama. What happened matters, but not knowing yet is even more powerful. By telling your audience they won't believe it, you're amplifying their expectation before revealing a single detail. That gap between the promise and the reveal is where anticipation turns into obsession. 4. Why it fits perfectly after part 1 and 2. The structure of your title works like a wave. Part 1 gives us calm water. My neighbor's son sat next to me. Part 2 is the swell, the dash where the tension builds. Part 3 is the crashing wave. You won't believe what happened. By the time the audience gets here, they've already pictured the scene and felt the tension. Now they're ready for the release, only you're not going to give it to them immediately. You're going to stretch it, tease it, and let them lean so far in that they can't back out. 5. How it plays in the audience's mind when people hear, "You won't believe what happened." They instantly run mental simulations. Did he say something shocking? Did he touch her in a way he shouldn't have? Did someone else walk in and see them together? Did he reveal a secret about himself or about her neighbor? They start imagining scenarios, each one more dramatic than the last, because you've primed them to expect the unexpected. 6. The promise of conflict drama needs conflict, and this phrase delivers it before the story even begins. It tells the audience, whatever happened next wasn't simple. It was complicated, messy, emotional, and maybe even dangerous. In mature storytelling, conflict isn't just about fighting, it's about moral tension. With the neighbor's son, the potential conflicts include internal conflict, attraction versus morality, relational conflict, protecting relationships versus acting on desire, social conflict, what people would say if they knew. 7. The element of taboo. You won't believe what happened takes on an even sharper edge when it involves someone like a neighbor's son. There's an inherent sense of this shouldn't happen, which makes the audience even more eager to find out if it did, and how far it went. This is where Love and Lies thrives, where innocence is in the room but temptation is knocking at the door. 8. The storytelling techniques it invites. Once you promise something unbelievable, you have to deliver it in a way that feels worth the build-up. That means layering, slow reveals. Give the audience small, escalating details before the big twist. Sensory cues. Let them feel the heat of the moment through what the narrator sees, hears, and feels. False turns lead them toward one expectation, then surprise them with something else. Example. He sits down. He makes a harmless comment, but his eyes linger too long. He mentions something personal that he's never told anyone else. Then, out of nowhere, he says the one thing that changes everything. 9. The you in the phrase, "You won't believe what happened," doesn't just tell the story, it pulls the listener in as a participant. It's as if the narrator is leaning toward them, lowering their voice and saying, "I have to tell you something, but you're not going to believe it." That makes the audience complicit. They're no longer a passive listener. They're someone trusted with a secret. And secrets are the lifeblood of mature drama. 10. The emotional payoff it promises in the Love and Lies style. Unbelievable doesn't just mean surprising. It means emotionally charged. The payoff could be a shiver of unexpected attraction, the sting of betrayal, the thrill of doing something daring, the heartbreak of realizing something can't happen. No matter how much you want it to. No matter the outcome, the audience expects to feel something they can't shake off. 11. How? This phrase shapes the whole story because you've set up such a strong promise. The rest of the narrative has to be built with care. Every beat has to push toward that unbelievable moment. The pacing, the dialogue, even the pauses in conversation all feed into the growing sense that something is about to happen. By the time the moment arrives, the audience has been holding their breath for so long that the release, whether it's a kiss, a confession, or a revelation, feels like a rush. 12. The emotional echo, the best "you won't believe what happened" moments don't just end when the event happens, they echo afterward. They leave the narrator with lingering thoughts. What does this mean for us? What will I tell my neighbor? Why can't I stop thinking about him? These echoes keep the audience hooked, even after the main twist has landed. 13. The risk factor. What makes the unbelievable part so gripping is often the risk involved. Risk could be emotional, getting too close, relational, damaging trust, or reputational, what others would think. The more risk, the more the audience feels that this moment matters, that it's not just a passing detail, but a turning point. 14. Why it works for repeat audiences even. If the audience has heard similar hooks before, the phrase, "You won't believe what happened," still works because it's elastic. It can fit romance, betrayal, comedy, heartbreak, or even danger. The exact nature of the unbelievable keeps changing, so it never loses its pull. 15. The subtext. What's left unsaid part of the beauty of this phrase is that it doesn't tell you whether what happened was good, bad, or morally complicated. It's just unbelievable. That openness invites the audience to project their own desires, fears, or fantasies onto the story until you decide to reveal the truth. 16. Example. Scenario in context. Picture this. You're at home alone. It's early evening, the kind of quiet where you can hear the hum of the fridge. There's a knock at the door. It's your neighbor's son. He says he needs to talk. You let him in, expecting small talk or a favor request. Instead, he sits beside you on the couch. There's a pause, the dash, and then he tells you something you never saw coming. Maybe it's a confession about the way he's felt for a long time. Maybe it's a dangerous piece of information about his family. Maybe it's a request so bold it takes your breath away. Whatever it is, it's the kind of moment that makes you say, "You won't believe what happened." At first glance, a dash might seem like a simple piece of punctuation, just a pause in the sentence. But in a title like "My neighbor's son sat next to me, you won't believe what happened," the dash isn't just grammar, it's a storytelling device, a subtle but powerful bridge between calm reality and emotional chaos. In the world of romantic, emotional, and mature drama, this dash is where the temperature changes. It's the moment the ordinary shifts into the extraordinary, where what you think is happening gives way to something unexpected, maybe even life-altering. 1. The dash as a doorway. Imagine the title without the dash. My neighbor's son sat next to me, you won't believe what happened. Without the pause, the emotional pacing collapses. It feels rushed, like the story has no room to breathe. But the dash forces a pause. It makes the reader stop mid-thought. That moment of silence is a doorway, one you can choose to walk through or not. Before the dash, we're in the safe, familiar zone. The scene is set. After the dash, we step into the unknown, and once you cross, you can't go back. This pause also signals to the reader something just shifted. That shift could be emotional, a spark of chemistry, physical, a touch, a gesture, or situational, a sudden event that changes the atmosphere. Closing parenthesis. 2. The dash as suspense doesn't just come from big events. It comes from the anticipation of what's next. The dash is like a heartbeat you feel in your ears before something happens. The moment you read the first part, my neighbor's son sat next to me, your mind starts to form an image. Maybe they're at a dinner table, a couch, or in a car. You think you know what's going on. Then you hit the dash and your brain asks, wait, why is there a pause here? What's coming next that's worth separating from the first part? Is this about to get intense? That pause between the two halves of the title lets curiosity bloom into need. 3. The dash as emotional tension. If part 1 is about physical closeness, the dash is where emotional closeness starts to creep in. It's where the narrator's awareness heightens. In a split second, the mind starts cataloging every detail. The way his leg brushed against hers, the quiet shift of his body turning slightly toward her, the change in his voice, lower, softer, the way the room suddenly feels too small. That's the magic of the dash. It compresses all these micro moments into a beat of silence, letting the reader feel the same anticipatory pull the narrator feels. 4. A dash as a point of no returning. Story terms, the dash is the hinge moment. Before it, you could end the story as a safe anecdote. My neighbor's son sat next to me. We chatted about the weather. But after the dash, you've committed to something worth telling, a moment that changes how you see that person, or how they see you. It's like that instant when a conversation takes a turn, and you know, deep down, you won't think of them the same way again. 5. Why this pause matters in romance and drama. Romantic and emotional storytelling thrives on build-up. The dash is that inhale before the kiss, the split second before someone confesses a secret, the moment before you decide to act or walk away. In mature, dramatic context, especially ones involving boundaries, attraction, or secrets, the pause has an extra weight because the stakes feel higher. With a neighbor's son, there's already social implications, age or life stage differences, existing relationships to protect. The dash gives space for those implications to settle before the narrative leaps into what happened. 6. How the dash creates imagination gaps. When readers hit the dash, they start filling in the blank themselves. They might imagine a surprising conversation, something he says that changes the mood, a physical gesture, a hand resting close, a glance that lingers. An emotional shift, realizing there's chemistry where there shouldn't be. Because you haven't revealed anything yet, the mind plays its own movie. And here's the secret. Readers often imagine something more intense than what you actually write, which makes them desperate to keep reading. 7. The silent language of the dash in body language. There's a concept called the beat, a pause, in movement that draws attention, because it breaks rhythm. The dash is the same in writing. It's a hesitation that screams meaning. In the narrator's perspective, that beat might be a second where her thoughts race faster than the conversation. A flicker of awareness that this isn't just casual anymore. The moment she wonders if someone else in the room is noticing the same shift. The dash doesn't just connect sentences, it carries unspoken emotion. 8. The dash as cinematic editing. If we think of the story as a movie, the dash is the cut between scenes. In film editing, when you cut after a lingering close-up on two characters, the audience expects something to change in the next shot. Here's how it works in the mind. Scene 1. Two people sitting. The air is calm, maybe with a hint of tension. Cut, the dash. Scene 2. Something disrupts that calm, whether subtle, a smile, a word, or dramatic. A revelation, a touch, an argument. The dash acts like a fade-out between two emotional beats, making the next moment feel sharper. 9. The psychological effect on the reader. Humans are wired to notice gaps. If you start a story and then pause before revealing the end, the brain lights up with curiosity. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. Our minds fixate on unfinished situations until they're resolved. The dash exploits this perfectly. It doesn't just separate sentences, it makes a promise. Something's coming that will change how you see the first part. This is why readers can't help but click, watch, or read further. That small punctuation mark has primed them for emotional payoff. 10. The dash in the context of your title. Let's break down how it works in your specific title. Before the dash, we're grounded in a situation that feels real and relatable. Sitting next to someone is harmless until we realize it's the neighbor's son. Already, our minds are curious. The dash, the pause where the scene could go anywhere: romantic, awkward, shocking, emotional. It's the stillness before motion. After the dash, the promise that the next part isn't going to be ordinary, it's going to be unbelievable. 11. Why mature storytelling needs this beat for channels like Love and Lies, which thrive on emotional intensity, betrayal, secrets, and unexpected twists. The dash is invaluable because it mirrors real emotional experience. In real life, big moments don't happen all at once, they hang in the air first. There's always that breath, that glance, that silence before the storm. The dash is your way of making the audience feel that silence without saying a word. 12. The dash is a moral crossroads in a romantic drama involving complex relationships. The dash can also symbolize the internal conflict. Before, innocence, normalcy, rules. After, possibility, temptation, risk. It's the heartbeat between deciding to keep things in the safe zone or to let them tip into dangerous territory. 13. A practical example of how it plays out. Imagine the narrator is at her kitchen counter, sipping tea during a neighborhood barbecue. The neighbor's son walks in, carrying a plate. Instead of sitting across the table or joining a group, he slides into the chair right beside her. There's a beat of silence, the dash, where she's suddenly aware of the closeness of his arm to hers, the faint scent of his cologne, the way he's looking at her, not in a casual passing way, but in a way that lingers. That moment, the pause, is where the story tilts. The dash is the space in which she decides whether to meet his eyes or to look away. 14. The dash as the hook to the hook, while you won't believe what happened, is the obvious hook. The dash is actually the subhook. It's the pivot that makes the second half believable. Without that pause, the second half would feel too abrupt, too forced. With the dash, the reader feels like they're leaning forward into the story, with the narrator curious, a little breathless, waiting for the other shoe to drop. 15. Why this works every time, whether the unbelievable part is shocking, romantic, scandalous, or heartwarming. The dash ensures that. This first part of the title is deceptively simple, but it's packed with layers of meaning, character dynamics, and emotional possibilities. It sets the stage for everything that will unfold, while also planting subtle seeds of intrigue in the reader's mind. To understand why this small detail, someone sitting next to you, can hold so much weight, we have to unpack the relationships, the unspoken social rules, and the emotional undertones behind it. 1. The familiarity of a neighbor. When you hear the word neighbor, you think of someone who lives close by, close enough to see regularly, but not necessarily close enough to truly know. They're part of your everyday landscape, waving when you pass, exchanging small talk about the weather, borrowing sugar or tools, attending the same block parties or community events. But the relationship between neighbors is unique. It's not quite friendship, not quite family. There's an invisible line, a balance between friendliness and distance. Neighbors share physical proximity, but not always personal intimacy. That's what makes their family members even more of a mystery. You might see the neighbor's son playing outside as a kid, watch him grow taller year by year, notice changes in his style, the way his voice deepens, or the shift from boyish awkwardness to the quiet confidence of adulthood. You may exchange polite hellos in the hallway or across a yard, but rarely is there a reason for deeper interaction. That's why the moment when he sits next to you suddenly feels loaded, because it breaks the usual pattern. 2. The significance of the son. The phrase "my neighbor's son" adds another layer of complexity. He's not just a neighbor. He's the child of someone you already know, respect, and possibly have an ongoing relationship with. This connection brings a certain taboo energy, because in most social circles, you don't cross certain lines with people connected to friends or acquaintances, especially their children. The title doesn't specify his age, and that's part of its intrigue. He could be a young man in his 20s, freshly independent, or still a teenager, which would add a sense of forbidden territory. Either way, the word son keeps him tethered in your mind to your neighbor's household, their rules and their perception of you. You can't fully see him as just another man sitting beside you because you're acutely aware that he's someone's son. That label lingers in the background, shaping your thoughts and emotions in subtle but powerful ways. 3. The unexpected closeness of "sat next to me." Now we come to the heart of the phrase. Sitting next to someone may seem like a small, casual thing, but human proximity changes the emotional climate instantly, especially when it's unexpected. Think of the scenarios. On a couch in your living room during a neighborhood gathering, when there's plenty of other seating that he chooses. The space beside you. At a park bench when you thought you'd have a quiet moment alone, and suddenly he joins you. In a car, perhaps because you offered a ride or circumstances put you side by side for a stretch of time. The act of sitting next to you implies a choice. He could have sat somewhere else. There's always somewhere else. But he didn't. That decision alone is enough to make you notice. And notice is where the mind begins to wander. When two people are side by side, they share an intimate physical space. You can feel the heat from their body, hear the subtle rhythm of their breathing, catch the faintest trace of their cologne or shampoo. Your peripheral vision picks up every small movement. The way his hand rests, the turn of his head when he looks at you, the slight shift in posture. These details become amplified simply because of the closeness. 4. The emotional undertones. Fact that the son of your neighbor is the one sitting next to you brings a mix of emotions that can swirl beneath the surface. Surprise. This isn't someone you usually interact with this closely. Curiosity. Why did he sit there? Was it intentional? Awkwardness. Should you make conversation or keep it polite and distant? Awareness. You're suddenly conscious of yourself. You're sitting, what you're saying, what you're wearing. Possibility. Even if you're not expecting anything dramatic, the human mind tends to imagine what-if scenarios and moments of unexpected closeness. What makes this emotionally rich is that these feelings often happen simultaneously, creating an internal push and pull. You tell yourself it's nothing, but you also know it feels like something. 5. Social context and silent rules. In most communities, there are unspoken boundaries about relationships. If you're married, in a relationship, or simply older and more established, there's often an expectation to maintain a certain kind of distance from younger men in your circle, especially those tied to family, friends, or neighbors. That's why "my neighbor's son sat next to me" is not just a neutral statement. It hints at the breaking or at least bending of a social norm. Even if nothing has happened yet, the situation itself feels like the opening move in a game you weren't planning to play. 6. Why this works as a story hook. From a storytelling perspective, this first part of the title works because it establishes a clear, relatable setting, introduces two characters with an existing but indirect connection, places them in unexpected physical closeness, creates instant emotional tension without needing any dramatic action, yet. It's quiet drama, the kind that doesn't shout but pulls the reader in with subtle tension. 7. The reader's curiosity. Readers see themselves in the narrator's shoes. They think, where were they? Why did he sit next to her? Was it innocent, or was there something more? What's going to happen next? That's the beauty of this phrase. It leaves space for imagination. Even before the dash in the title, the reader's mind is already spinning possible outcomes, each more intriguing than the last. 8. The emotional charge of stillness. It's worth noting that in real life, big moments often start small. A conversation that changes everything might begin with nothing more than someone sitting down beside you. This stillness, the quiet before the storm, is potent because it's full of potential. The moment before anything happens is when your senses are most heightened. You don't know if the next thing will be a harmless chat about the weather, or the first step into a situation you'll never forget. That edge of uncertainty is intoxicating for both the storyteller and the audience. 9. The implied backstory. Even without more detail, the title invites you to imagine the history between these two people. Have they known each other for years but never had a real conversation? Has she always thought of him as just a kid, only to notice lately that he's not so much a kid anymore? Has he shown subtle signs of interest before lingering eye contact, casual questions, offering to help with small tasks? The sitting next to her could be the culmination of many small moments the narrator didn't pay much attention to until now. 10. The unavoidable question at the core of this phrase is a question. What does this mean? It's that question that keeps both the narrator and the reader invested. Even if the initial act is innocent, the mind rarely accepts it at face value when there's any hint of attraction, taboo, or emotional vulnerability in the air. And that's exactly why the moment of "my neighbor's son sat next to me" feels like the beginning of something that could change everything, because sometimes the smallest moments open the biggest doors.